Mr. Speaker, Mr. Paul today in New Hampshire laughed at your positive campaign letter and said that it's not going negative when they talk about your record and show how you flip-flopped on issues. Can you respond to that? And also, is Mr. Paul's Tea Party ground game strength a threat to you here in Iowa?
Well, I think he's a very formidable opponent, and in a caucus state, he has a very significant ability to turn out votes. I think in great shape. But I just want you to draw a contrast between what I talked about here today, that affects people's lives, that actually offers you hope for balancing, a major step towards balancing the budget. If you can postpone Alzheimer's by 5 years, not cure it, just postpone it by 5 years, you save $6 to $8 trillion between now and 2050. Now, if Mr. Paul has an idea for how he would save that kind of money doing something that involves science and technology, it's terrific. I think we ought to have a campaign of positive ideas.
Mr. Speaker, yes, earlier today.
Can you address the content of what the protesters were
I
saying?
actually just asked him.
But can you address the content about their problems with unemployment?
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, earlier today, your chief rival, Mitt Romney, said to the New York Times, quote, "Zany is not what we need in a president." He appeared to be talking about you, calling you zany. This comes, as this reporter just mentioned, just a little more than a day after your plea for a positive campaign. What is your response to the former Massachusetts governor?
My response is I think a brain science initiative is a way of helping human beings.
Right.
I hope, well, I'll let him decide if it's zany.
So you're not going to respond to these attacks?
I understand what all their consultants are doing. That's fine. They should run their campaign the way they want to. I'm going to run my campaign the way I want to. And my campaign is going to focus on positive ideas and positive solutions. And I'm, frankly, taking the gamble that the American people care about actually solving our country's problems, not just watching politicians beat each other up.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, how would you address how would you solve some of the concerns expressed today, and especially for students here, you know, this crisis that they're complaining about, crushing student debt, high unemployment, what would you do for the,
well,
on the
if you
student
go,
loans to relieve that burden?
if they had wanted to go to new.org and learn, they would have found that I have an entire program for economic growth. They would have found that, in fact, I worked with Ronald Reagan in the early 80s. We created as many as 1,300,000 jobs in 1 month in September of '83. We brought unemployment down from 10.8% to under 6% under Reagan. When I was Speaker, we had the first tax cut in 16 years and the largest capital gains tax cut in history, and we brought unemployment down to 4.2%. So I'd have been delighted if they had asked questions about how to create jobs. I'd be glad to talk to them about how to create jobs.
But the question of debt, how to deal with student debt, which is much higher and much more threatening than it was in the era you're talking about.
I think we need, first of all, we need to spin the student loan program away from the federal government where we totally mismanage and end up in fraud. It should go back to being the private sector. Second, students ought to frankly try to get through college as quickly as they can with the least amount of borrowing they can. Third, I think there ought to be, every state should be investigating why college costs have gone up so much. There's one estimate they're going to have 1 clerk for every professor by 2014. And there's been an explosion of costs. Public universities have risen faster than private in the last 5 years. So I think this whole issue of why is higher education so expensive is a very good question for young people to ask. And I think they should be looking very seriously at how many things are done that are unnecessary.